So we are learning more details about exactly how Joe Biden is thinking about a potential administration. Let's throw up this tweet from Robert Costa. Amazing olive branches to the left all around here. So Biden, per the Pool reporter, said, "I view myself as a transition candidate. My job is to bring the Mayor Petes of the world into this administration." And Saagar, there were many things that are notable about that sentiment. First of all, it managed to piss off like everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously like people like me are like, no,
Right.
no, not that, anything but that. But also like people who care a lot about diversity and identity were like, great, like younger white dudes, perfect, thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's just so, that quote alone, I was like, mother of God. That is...
I have like a visceral reaction
cringe.
to it.
It's funny because you can see exactly how Biden's mind is working. He's like, "Oh, he's a young guy," right? And it's like, no, Mayor Pete just has boomer politics. He had a much larger support amongst older voters in Iowa and any other place that he won votes than he ever did amongst young people.
Yeah.
Same old policies, just with a brand new face on it.
Exactly. I saw someone tweet, "We must transplant these radical boomer reactionary politics into a younger host."
Yes, exactly.
Which is like exactly
it's like
right.
a Westworld thing.
And it actually, I mean, like we joke about it, but it actually is really significant, and why people on the left are so deeply concerned about a Biden administration, because it's not just about these 4 years. It's about the establishment trying to consolidate their grip for the long term, totally quash progressives. I mean, we've reported on several developments of Democrats. While you think that Democrats don't know how to fight because they're so pathetic in their resistance to Donald Trump and the Republicans, they have all kinds of energy and tactics when it comes to quashing the progressives who they see as their real adversaries and real enemies. So yeah, Biden's thinking we're going to staff up with a bunch of the young guns who are just like us, but in a younger body, and we'll be good to go for the long haul.
Yeah, it's extremely cringe. And it just shows a broader commitment to realigning that Democratic Party around the upper middle class white liberals, and particularly suburbans. I mean, look, the Axios report looks even more accurate now, because what did they say? Pete Buttigieg is going to get repaid for his endorsement in a big way, in either the United Nations representative or as a U.S. trade representative. I honestly can't think which is worse. Like, McKinsey trade policy is exactly what the last 40 years is like. TPP is written, bought, and paid for by people like Pete Buttigieg.
That's exactly right.
And McKinsey. So that just gives you a very little preview into what's happening. And at the same time,
policy.
Exactly. And at the same time, speaking of that, CNBC has a new story out that won't surprise any of you about how Joe Biden's big money donors are very much against him trying to pick Elizabeth Warren for the vice president. They say, quote, he would lose the election. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Maybe, but not because of the reasons that they...
That's not why they care about it.
That's not why they care about it. It's because this is a perfect example. They will not countenance even a single piece of dissent within his cabinet. Like, a lot is trying to be made right now of Ted Kaufman, who's on the chair. He's on the committee in order to vet some of the VP presidential candidates. He's like, he's an anti-Wall Street guy. Well, he also worked for Biden. He was chief of staff. Replaced him, senator for MBNA. He was around for all those times. But Elizabeth Warren, who, I mean, some of our progressive audience, like, they know exactly what they think of her, and people on the right obviously think she's a complete fraud. Even she is too much to countenance for these Wall Street donors. So it just goes to show. I mean, they'll exercise their power in any way they can. No Elizabeth Warren, more Larry Summers.
Yeah, she is, in terms of her belief set, she may be on the more progressive side in terms, at least, of Senate Democrats, but at the bottom, she is a team player.
Right.
She is a player in the game, and that comes first and foremost. I mean, that's what we saw in 2016 with the way she played the intro. That's what we saw this time around, time and time again. Her loyalty is first and foremost to the party. She would do whatever and flack for whatever Joe Biden wanted her to do. But even someone who holds any progressive leanings is too radical for his donor community, who he promised that nothing would fundamentally change in terms of their lifestyle. So I wouldn't get her hopes up if, which, you know, we've been saying here for a long time, there was no way he's going to pick her for VP.
Yeah, politically it wouldn't make any sense. But again, it's just they are willing to go out on the record, basically, or on background in CNBC, Wall Street executives, and just be like, oh, she's terrible. She can't do it. No way. It's like a direct sign.
Some of those billionaire tears segments were about her in the primary. I'm like, really? Really? This is the one you're worried
Yeah.
about? Okay.
It's a funny one.
Yeah.
So at the same time, speaking of that vice presidential committee, well, Biden has gotten himself into a little bit of hot water, especially given this moment, by the selection of Chris Dodd. So Chris Dodd, name is on the Dodd-Frank bill. He was a longtime Senate institution. After he left the Senate, he went and became the chairman of the Motion Pictures Association and longtime friend of Harvey Weinstein, but even more noteworthy, and I knew this at the time because I've read quite a bit about it, is Chris Dodd was famous for palling around with Ted Kennedy and getting up to some very unsavory things. Included in a GQ profile there that Mark Hemingway linked to is a story about the two of them allegedly in a restaurant here in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s, basically forming a, quote, waitress sandwich. And they were in a drunken brawl and put a young waitress in between them as they it's pretty gross. You should go read about it.
Yeah, it's as bad as you can possibly imagine it being.
Imagining lecherous senatorial drunks with too much money.
I don't want
to, though. And that's basically what was happening.
I don't want to imagine any of that.
I really don't.
And look, should people be judged for their entire lives for something they did in the 80s? Okay, no. But given what Joe Biden, the allegations that Joe Biden is facing right now, and not to mention, I mean, at the beginning of his campaign, 7 different women came forward and said, I had a problem with the way that he was, around me. And I mean, we see on camera many horribly uncomfortable moments. You would think that you would pick maybe someone who didn't have those kinds of issues just as a smart political move, even if you don't actually care about the substance of treatment of women.
It's that, and it's just it's all about baggage. It's all about who you're talking to. I mean, apparently yesterday, we'll play some of this later in the show, it's great, when he was talking with Megan Rapinoe, the soccer star, he was talking on Instagram Live about Mike Mansfield and the days that they used to hang out in the Senate. And somebody tweeted this is crazy. Mike Mansfield died 12 years before Instagram was even invented, the platform of which Joe Biden is talking on. And it just goes to show where his mental framework is. It's in a world of Ted Kaufman and Chris Dodd and Mike Mansfield. I mean, I've read about Mike Mansfield from the 1960s and 70s era.
And where you think that Pete Buttigieg is the shining new change candidate of the future that you should be handing off to. I mean, that to me really says it all. It's you've got the same old on your committee to pick your VP. You're getting advice from your donors about who is allowed to be on that VP list and who is not. And then you're out there telling reporters, thinking, I guess, that this is, well, you know who it appeals to, the Pete Buttigieg thing, is those donors, exactly. Is exactly who he had the greatest appeal to. Silicon Valley loved him. That whole set was all about Pete Buttigieg. But telling people that yes, Pete Buttigieg's of the world are going to be staffing up his administration tells you everything you need to know, really.
Very cringe. All right.
Indeed. We'll have more Rising for you after this.